Chris Chinnock here for Display Daily. I'm in the ACES, actually it's the Academy booth, where we're talking about ACES with Andy Mance. Is it Mance or Maltz? Maltz, who is the Managing Director of the Science and Technology Council, which is basically the Science and Technology Council of the Academy. And you've been charged with developing the ACES program, and it's been, what, maybe 8-10 years in development now?
So the idea for the project actually started about 11 years ago. Real work started about 10 years ago. And it was originally called the file format project because the problem we set out to solve was there was no interchange of digital image files between facilities. And as we dug into the problem, we realized that, oh, color management, that's a big issue. So managing color throughout motion picture production. There were no digital standards, no standards for that in the digital world. We had a lot of standards for that in the film world, but there were no standards in the digital world. Everything was proprietary.
Isn't the CDL an established standard now?
Well, so the ASC CDL is it's not quite standardized. It's an ad hoc standard, and it's a recent development. And it doesn't describe everything about an image. It describes changes one might make, creative changes one might make to an image, but it doesn't describe how an image is encoded. It doesn't describe the file format or container for the image. It doesn't describe the transforms to get into a common encoding or out to various displays. So it's a very important piece of the ecosystem, but it's not all of the pieces.
Gotcha. And that's really how ACES eventually evolved, was to manage the whole encoding process throughout the throughout the whole process, from content creation through mastering and I guess for finishing as well. Correct?
Pretty correct. It's intended to provide the tools and the foundation for filmmakers and the technologists involved in making movies to manage the process, to manage the movement of the images from on set all the way through to the display, whether it's in cinema, home video, or some of these new high dynamic range formats that are coming up. The other problem we were trying to solve is that there were no standard specifications for file formats for long-term archiving. That's another topic the Academy cares a lot about. As we moved away from film, we don't have a replacement technology in the digital world that has the long-term archiving characteristics that film has. You put film in a cold room and you'll have it 100 years later. Digital bits, you're lucky if you can get the bits off a disk or media in 6 months, a year. You just don't know unless you do a lot of special practices.
Yeah. So this is kind of like your coming out party, I guess, for ACES, the first time you've exhibited at NAB. So tell us, what's the messaging you're trying to tell people at this point about ACES?
So the primary message is that ACES is here. It's been in development for a long time. It's ready for production. We have a lot of trial productions under our belt, a lot of field use under our belt, but ACES 1, you've been waiting for something that's finished, here it is. Okay. That's message number one. Message number two is there are a lot of companies that have signed on to integrate ACES concepts and technologies into their products. So we have 22 ACES product partners. They're listed on our website, and we wanted to reflect some of the attention that Oscar draws back to the product partners.
Yes. Okay. So why would someone want to adopt ACES? What's the benefit for the folks in the chain here?
Depends on who it is. If you're a cinematographer, the benefit to you is maintaining your creative intent throughout the process. If you want to use your light meter again, the tools you know how to use will work in an ACES-driven pipeline. If you're a colorist, you will have everything that comes off the set. There's no stepping on the image. Legacy workflows, HDTV workflows, reduce the quality, the precision, dynamic range, and gamut of an image coming out of a camera right up front. If you use ACES, you get everything coming out of the camera.
Now you use XYZ encoding, right?
Well, it's part of it. ACES, the primary encoding of ACES is actually RGB, but it's a simple transform between RGB and XYZ. And RGB is also a more intuitive transform to do basic color operations than is XYZ.
Okay.
And if you're a visual effects artist, again, you get the benefit of common transforms, common color language between the set, between digital intermediate and mastering. And if you're an archivist, you know what you're getting and what you're putting into the archive. And if you can get your zeros and ones back in 50 years, you'll know what those zeros and ones actually mean because ACES is standards based.
Okay. So all that stuff is basically contained as metadata within the container. Is that so you can pull all that stuff out? Is that the idea?
That's right. So you have a very well specified image encoding specifications, actually a set of image encoding specifications, and very well specified metadata that's lightweight, that can go into the archive along with the image data.
So there's been a number of productions that have been done with ACES already, kind of as maybe trial balloons or test platforms. Tell me about those and what lessons were learned.
So a number of TV shows and movies have been done in ACES. You can actually go to, there are a couple of websites to track that, shotonwatt.com. IMDb now has an ACES search key, so you can see which movies have been done in that, and in using ACES. And we learned a lot. We learned about how to make it easier for a colorist to actually work with ACES data, because the dynamic range is so high and the gamut is so wide. People forget what it was like when we moved from standard definition to high definition. Nothing worked because the tools were optimized for 601 encoding, standard definition encoding. And when we went to 709, which is a wider color gamut, a little different color gamut, everything had to be retuned. Well, ACES basically turns the knob up to 11, right? And everything has to be retuned to work for that. But the benefit is you get to keep what comes out of the camera all the way through the process.
And all the derivative products of that are now subsets of the ACES data at that point, correct?
That's right. They're basically trim passes off the whatever. If it was digital cinema content was the dominant or master content, it's a trim pass. Generally speaking, I mean, if you got some very extreme creative grades, you might have to work a little harder for the other forms. But the basic idea is it's a straightforward trim pass.
Okay. So how do you expect adoption to roll out? Is this going to be a 1, 5, 10-year kind of a adoption ramp, do you think, or?
Well, it's really hard to say. It really all depends on what the filmmakers decide to do. See, we feel the Academy and our project committee members did our part by listening to the industry, working with industry to come up with the specifications. The product partners are now doing their part to build the ACES concepts and technologies into their products. Now it's the rest of the industry's turn to do their part, start using it, and engage in dialogue with the product partners, let them know what specific features they need, how they want it to work, how well it's working, anything that needs to be corrected. So it could move pretty quickly, with the number of projects we've heard about already, and the features that ACES 1 brings and the standards that will follow, it could go pretty quickly.
So the barrier to adoption is really more momentum. I've done my work this way forever. Why do I want to change? Is that the biggest hurdle, you think?
Yeah, people have workflows that work for them, but they give up a lot with a lot of those workflows. They give up, for instance, if you shoot a movie and you had a lot of range in the camera, and now you want to go back and do a high dynamic range remaster, you basically have to make your movie all over again. If you used ACES right from the start, all that data is already there, and it's potentially a trim pass. So it's really people need to get comfortable with what the concepts are. Color science can be scary, but ACES essentially takes the color science, puts it in a box, ties it up in a bow, and you get to use it.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. The arguments are compelling, but convincing people to try something new can be sometimes a little bit tougher than you might want, perhaps.
That's right, and I think part of the role, of a big role for the Academy, is because we don't have any commercial interest in this. Our organization represents the actual creators of motion pictures, so we are obligated to do the right thing, and we think ACES is the right thing.
Well, certainly economics can be a big motivation. If you can save money doing this, and and you're a cinematographer, that's money in the bank. So it's worth doing, it seems to me, or a colorist, or anyone in the chain.
And for producers and for production executives, we can't make promises about every production, but we have reports from the field, and if you come back tomorrow, we'll have some cinematographers around that are talking about the work that they've done. They've reported efficiencies of 90% in color correction. Wow. So all the work they had to do to match cameras, just the basic technical grades, has been cut by 90% because ACES does that for them.
That's pretty compelling. That ought to convince people.
You think?
You think?
We hope.
We hope. Good deal. Well, thank you very much, Andy.
You're quite welcome.
Good luck. Chris Chinnock for Display Daily.